In today's video, I'm going to be answering all of your iCave answers about the Apple event, all that sort of stuff. But first, we need to look at the worst take on the Apple event that I found on the internet, and it comes from Mashable. I'm iCave Dave and I simplify Apple so that everything just works for you, and if you want the latest Apple leaks, news and rumours every weekday at Wwdc, like this video, subscribe to the channel and ring my bell. And let's get down to this. In worst Apple event ever, tech giant becomes a parody of itself. With minimal update and weird product choices, Tim Cook's company looks tired and oddly humourless. So, you know, pretty positive start. But they're first of all saying that the Apple keynote, they've been to Apple keynotes before. This is a guy called Chris Taylor. Future Boy on Twitter. So the fun came to a screeching halt during Monday's Apple event, in which there was precious little to announce: new Apple Music price tier, new HomePod colours, barely new AirPods, and enough tech specs from a confusing couple of laptop chips to send a Mac nerd like me to sleep. What is he talking about? Yes, there was a lot of numbers, there was a lot of graphs. It was far from boring if you're actually a Mac geek. Maybe he's not, maybe he is, I don't know. Never met the guy. Doesn't seem like much of a Mac geek if he thought this was a bad event. Really, Chris. The $19 screen cleaner, this year's iPod socks, didn't even rate a mention. Not for lack of time, the keynote lasted 50 minutes, making it Apple's shortest ever, and didn't so much end as give up the ghost. Now, interesting take, yes, 50 minutes is a very short Apple event. I agree on that part. It was short because I think they probably had to cut out the chunk for the Mac Mini because it's not going to be ready to ship just yet. I think we will still see it before Christmas. But here we go. The only humour at the event came from unintentional self-parody. My first reaction to the Apple Music voice plan, which charges $5 a month but removes the ability to type your searches, it's Siri activated only, was to check the calendar to make sure it wasn't April the 1st. Apple keynotes have felt dystopian before, but this one is herding us into a world where the have-nots have their keyboards literally removed from the screen. Plus, in marketing terms, this is kind of a cell phone. If Siri is so great, why is the Siri only plan half price? We've discussed this yesterday. It's more about training people to be able to use voice first, because there's going to be products coming in future where, for example, Chris, Apple Glass ain't going to have a keyboard on it, pal. You're going to have to get used to using Siri, and it also helps Siri to get more voice samples in order to be trained to actually work better in the first place. Double win. And then he goes on to talk about Apple ditching the notch on the iPhone 14 and then putting it onto the laptops instead. Again, very low-hanging fruit you're going for here, Chris. You're not really kind of making any points. You're just going, oh, don't really like notches, so it's rubbish. Everything old is new again on this MacBook. It brought back MagSafe charging, prompted the question, why did it ever go away? It went away because of Johnny Ive, and then Johnny Ive left, so it's come back. Retains the more secure Touch ID rather than upgrading to Face ID. This guy obviously knows nothing about Face ID and Touch ID because Touch ID is about 20 times less secure than Face ID, according to Apple's numbers. And still has the headphone jack that Apple took away from the phone after the late, lamented iPhone 6. So the wired headphones, that's because they're high impedance for high quality headphones. Touch ID and wired headphones are too old school for the iPhone, but they're indispensable on a notebook the marketing team calls game changing. Yes, because you use a phone differently from a MacBook. They're different devices. How are you not getting this, Chris? And if those questions hurt your head, don't even wade into the differences between the M1 Max and the M1 Pro chips. Is the Max for amateurs? No. Is the Pro really taking it to the max? The way Apple chose to arrange its introductions, it was almost like the Pro became obsolete and was replaced by the Max during the keynote. Come on, Apple. SNL did the Skaggy a decade ago in a weekend update starring Fred Armisen as Jobs. Now get some new material. I agree that the names for the chips aren't that great, but it also doesn't make it the worst keynote ever, I don't think. The keynote cut between never-before-seen Apple executives so fast that it almost seemed part of the parody too. The one who got the most screen time was also the one who introduced a wide range of seriously esoteric charts about CPU and GPU performance, and then glared at the audience like we'd forgotten to do our homework. So he's talking about Johnny Sarugi here, who we've definitely seen before because he's the head of chips, like chip development, and has been at Apple doing it for over a decade. Is he a humorful guy? Probably not. He's not there to be a comedian. He makes really vast chips. Poor old software chief Craig Federighi, daddy extraordinaire, returned for his first Apple event since 2020 with under a minute of screen time and didn't even crack a single dad joke. No, because it wasn't a funny event. It was an event where they're changing the landscape for laptops, mate. Chris, I feel like you might just need to take a holiday, maybe? I know it's been hard for everyone. We've all been cooped up at home. Just go and sit on the beach for a bit, pal. I think you need a little break. But anyway, there we go. That's the Mashable article. They're obviously a very serious journalistic organisation, as we can tell from this. But yeah, I just thought I would share that one with you. Thanks to Andre Louis for sending it my way. And let's get into your answers. We've got so many to get through, so we are going to go a little bit quicker than normal. And in honour of the Apple voice plan for Apple Music, we're going to have Siri rejoin us to read the questions.
Team Kinetix asks, iCave answers, 14 inches MacBook Pro now showing a delivery date of between 12th and 14th of November. Do you think there will be a shortage? Do you think these machines have sold well on day one pre-orders?
I think these have probably sold better than Apple was expecting in the first place, but that is not like enormous numbers because these are the very expensive, very high-end Pro laptops. I'm sure there's a lot of people buying them that don't need them, also buying versions that they don't need. I'm sure there's a lot of YouTubers out there that have bought, like, for example, Max Tech's channel. I think they've bought 7 because they need different configurations so that they can compare them. So there is a lot out there that are kind of not natural sales, if you like. But yes, they've sold very well. I don't think there's going to be a chip shortage. I think a lot of these shipment dates will probably come back forwards a little bit, so they're a little bit closer than it looks right now.
Mein Deutschkurs
Asks, iCave answers, so, do you have to match certain phrases to bring Siri to do something? Or are you able to use natural language?
Over here, I'm finding Siri is getting better and better. To be completely honest, natural language works really well. So I'm hoping that will be rolled out further. And I think this is part of the reason that we've got this new tier on Apple Music so that people can train it a little bit more so it gets used to more voices. I think that's a big chunk of what they're doing here.
Team Kinetix asks, iCave answers, do we have to stop saying M1X now?
Yep, absolutely. We can't say M1X anymore. It's not a thing. We know this now. It doesn't exist. Sad times.
Citi Zen asks, iCave answers, what do you think the prices will be for the Mac Mini? And when will it arrive? We'll be wanting this spec. 10-core CPU, 16-core GPU, 32 GB RAM, and 512 SSD.
So that's one upgrade that you've got there, which is the 32 gigs of RAM from 16 as a standard, and you're not going for the base one. So I think we're probably going to be looking at, I don't know, $10.99 probably for the one with bin chips. So I would say probably $13.99, $14.99, probably $14.99. That's my best guess. And when will it arrive? I think before Christmas, but I don't know.
Chaston R asks, iCave answers, where's the Mac Mini? Do you think it will get the M1 Pro or M1 Max chip?
So as I mentioned a little bit earlier in the video, I do think that these got cut out of the event. I think they were really trying to do it. I think they had filmed stuff around it. I don't have evidence for that, but it is a 50-minute event. Normally they run for about an hour. 10 minutes to introduce the Mac Mini when you've already done the Mac Pro that tells you about all the chips. Yes, I think that seems about right. And also M1 Pro and M1 Max. Yes, there's no reason that you couldn't have both of them in there because you're going to have the thermal headroom, you can plug it into the mains, and you can have as big a fan as you want.
Team Kinetix asks, iCave answers, do you think Apple stand a chance of getting back market share from Amazon and those Alexa devices?
I don't think it's intended to be the same thing as these. It's a smart assistant kind of HomePod thing, but it's not designed... Like, let's be honest, the Alexa devices are really there designed to buy things. You say, Alexa, order me some toothpaste. And hopefully now all of your Alexa devices that are near your computer will have done that for you. Apple's HomePods are more about music, playback and entertainment and the kind of utility within the home, things like the intercom, all that sort of stuff. What I do think they should do is probably bring it down to $79. And I think at $30 more than the competition, because you can get those easily for $50, quite often $30 in the sales. I think for $79 they would probably pick up quite a bit of market share.
Team Kinetix asks, iCave answers, do you think the M1 Pro, M1 Max chip options will be the same on desktop machines such as the Mac Mini and iMac? There's a lot more chip options than I was expecting on the MacBooks Pro. Shame they didn't keep the simplicity of the M1 machines.
Yeah, I do think we're going to get basically the same chips. The Mac Mini so far has not had a binned chip, but the M1 iMac did, which is a little bit confusing. I would have thought they would go the other way round. I think all of these options will be available on all of the form factors. I think that's what Apple wants to do. I know it's a bit more inventory, but I think they only really need to keep those for shipping. They don't need to have every option in the stores. So that's what I think they will do.
Brian Data asks, iCave answers, I am curious on thermal throttling in the M1 Max 14-inch. It has to manage heat from 10 CPU cores, and looks like 60 watts of 32 GPU cores. This could be a warm beast.
I see your concern, but A, it's a bigger die. B, this entire laptop has been built ready for this chip, so there should be absolutely no issues with calling it, and I would guess they've also left themselves a lot of thermal headroom for moving on to bigger ones. But also, because Apple has built it all themselves, they've got the ability to shut down different cores when they need to, kind of spread the heat between different cores quite intelligently. So I don't think there's going to be any issues with thermal throttling. I don't expect the performance to be any different between the 16 and 14-inch models.
Joe asks, iCave answers, do you think the Pro Apple products should come in colors? Like the new MacBooks could have went with iPhone 13 Pro colors, or something along the lines of that.
Now, I do wish we'd got more colours. However, going to the iPhone Pro colours would be really difficult because these are stainless steel models, and the treatments that you can do to stainless steel and aluminium are different, as you can see from the iPhone 13 versus the 13 Pro. Very different colours, very different finishes going on with those, so it would be very difficult to get that kind of polished finish on an aluminium body. But when we go to titanium, which it looks like Apple wants to do at some point soon, that could be a possibility.
Yuri Tech asks, iCave answers, if you were to buy any of the 14 inches or 16 inches MacBook Pro, what would it be?
So practically, I would go for a base level 14-inch because it's got way more performance than what I have right now, and it's also the most reasonably priced. So 2,000, yeah, fine. 18.99 here in the UK in pounds. That's not a ridiculous price point, I don't think, for the performance that you get in it. Given all the options in the world, I would go for a maxed out 14. I'm not that keen on the 16. I think they're too big. I want something I can put in my bag.
Joe asks, iCave answers, wonder how you feel about the Max version of MagSafe, but if IT comes to the iPad Pro.
And yes, we have been hearing about MagSafe coming to the iPad Pros, although it looks like it's going to be the magnetic puck version that we have for the iPhones more than it is the actual contacts version that we have on the MacBooks. The reason I say that is it looks like we're getting a glass back on the new iPad Pros when they get refreshed next, or possibly the time after that, but that's the rumour that we're seeing.
Jakob Friedrich asks, iCave answers, release time and price predictions on Mac Mini M1 Pro Max.
So in terms of price predictions, I think it'll start at $10.99 still, but that will be for a binned chip, and then you'll be going up to goodness knows where. I think it's about $400 to change between a Pro and a Max on the MacBooks, and I would guess it would be the same upgrade price on that. $400 or $500, something around that point.
The Duke of Kidderminster asks, iCave answers, do you think they should have saved the polishing cloth for one more thing?
Yes, definitely. The polishing cloth, $19. It's an absolute steal. iJustine is doing a big unboxing video for it. Very excited.
Just a passerby asks, iCave answers, so what do you think? Am I going to have to wait until the 32-inch iMac event for my updated Mac Mini with M1 Pro or M1 Max? Or will we get a quiet non-event upgrade for the Mini in the coming months?
Yeah, I do think we're probably going to get a non-event Mini in the next few months, unless they have actually got a full-on software event coming. But it looks like they've covered pretty much all of that already. So I think it's going to be a lot more like the AirPods Max when they were released last year.
Robo asks, iCave answers, do you think that you can charge the new MacBook Pro using both the MagSafe charger and the USB-C cable for even faster charging?
No, we've seen this on the previous MacBook Pros as well. If you were to put two power cables into it, it just chooses one of them, whichever one's got the most power to it, and it chooses that one. It won't allow you to charge through multiple ports at the same time.
Little Mountain Life Great Show asks, iCave answers, how long will I have to wait for hard cases that for the 14 inches MVP? Gotta protect my new baby.
That is an interesting point, because for that sort of thing, you do have to make, full-on steel molds that you can basically injection mold into. So I don't think it's going to be super quick. You're going to be probably looking at least a month from now, now that the designs are actually out there, because these designs didn't really leak, not very much. So I don't think that the case designers are going to be ready. What I would suggest, though, is getting a slip case or something like that for it. I would probably prefer that over using one of those. I don't think the hard case is actually going to protect it other than from little minor scratches and blemishes, and it'll just make it look awful in the first place by putting a hard case on it. So are you actually winning in any way? You're making it look worse and be thicker, as opposed to it maybe getting dinged slightly. It depends. It's really about whether you want to sell it or just keep it for yourself. If you want to sell it on, put it in a hard case. If you want to keep it for yourself until it's basically obsolete, I wouldn't bother.
Evan Rogers asks, iCave answers, so did Apple officially troll us with the M1X tags at WWDC? And what will they name the Mac Pro SoC?
So I don't think Apple was trolling us. I think they were using the tags that people were expecting, and potentially M1X might have been the naming that they were going through for at the time, and then they changed it further down the line in terms of marketing. I don't know this, but that seems like the kind of thing that they might have done. In terms of the Mac Pro SoC, I think either M1 Ultimate or M1 Extreme, something along those lines. I know it's a bit corny. Maybe just M1X. Maybe that's what they'll call it.
Team Kinetix asks, iCave answers, how long do we think it will be before some big studios start developing porting games to Apple Silicon? The sheer power of the new chips is mad. Bring on the Mac Pro face with open eyes and mouth with head exploding.
Well, I'm hoping that there's a lot of studios out there that have watched this and gone, you know what, there's going to be a lot of people buying these, and, you know, as evidenced by the delays in shipping now, I think they are going to be super popular. It's more of a case of the people that are buying them, are they people that want to game on them? Or are they people that want them for creative stuff and that's all they want? That's, I guess, the balance point, because it's not worthwhile for developers to develop games for a platform if people that own that thing aren't that bothered about gaming.
Team Kinetix asks, iCave answers, can you give some insight into the options and pricing of the new MacBooks Pro? £1,900 for a bin chip seems steep, even for Apple. My optimum spec is coming in at almost £3,000. Ouch.
Right now, there's not a lot of insight I can give. Yes, it's a bin chip, but that's exactly what Intel's i3, i5, and i7 processors are. They're binned versions of i9, as far as I understand it. So basically with disabled cores because of errors that have happened in the production process. That's all that happens here. You're still getting 50% more performance, I guess, with the 8-core CPU version than the M1. So that's pretty good. Or, you know, it's not going to be 50% more, maybe 40% more performance. So it just depends what you need. I do think that the entry level is probably a pretty good deal for most people. Again, unless you're doing super high-end stuff where you need the full whack of that 30 streams of ProRes, I don't think it's going to make too much difference in most people's use cases. I'd also, by the way, still say that the best way to work with Macs is to buy the one that you want now and then sell it when the next one comes, so that you're basically renting over the years.
Pedal Thing asks, iCave answers, hi Dave. Not so much a question, but as someone who's used an iPhone since 2007, imagine my surprise when I discovered today an Apple-authored 1,500-page iPhone manual for iOS 15 on Apple Books. They seem to have comprehensive manuals for most of the products. I may be the last person to know these exist, but I'd bet there's more than one of your viewers who isn't aware either. Packed full of everything you wanted to know about and a fair bit you might not know about. No YouTuber, our friends, or colleagues have ever mentioned these exist. And there I was for years thinking Apple just expected us to use the Force to discover features.
So the way that Apple does work is actually they do kind of expect you to find these things, and they will put in labels when you get close to be like, oh, there's this here, this is new. Because that's a much more natural way for people to find things, and just going through a manual, most people won't do it, especially 1,500 pages of it for an operating system. So it is definitely interesting that these things exist. I didn't know myself, and I'm definitely going to go and check it out, see if there's some interesting stuff in there.
The Duke of Kidderminster asks, iCave answers, do we have any idea how many pixels are going to be either side of that bloody notch?
We don't. I think it's going to be about 7 either side. No, it is a big old notch. It comes down quite a way. I think it's 74 pixels deep. But I don't think it's going to make a massive difference in the real world. It's going to go into the menu bar. Most people aren't even going to notice it. I mean, they'll know it's there, but it's not going to be something that grabs your attention all the way through. So don't worry about it. Just live your life, enjoy the performance, and That's it for this show, guys. Thank you so much, and we will see you in the next one.